All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp Shapiro, glad you could join us. By the way, we are streaming live on YouTube.
And we have full audio, so you can actually hear our callers and our special guests. If you check out the live stream, we did not have that yesterday, so that's a big advancement.
Wait, so you mean you could actually go on YouTube, see both of our faces,
Correct.
and hear audio at the same time?
And,
wow.
Well, not just us in studio, but you can actually hear the callers, whether they're fans of the show calling in to have a conversation with us or actual scheduled guests.
That is nice to know. So check it out.
Which was not the case yesterday.
The YouTube page, The Vegas Take, check it out, and we're streaming right now. So tune in. So a lot to get to coming up here at the top of the hour. We're going to be getting to Amy Vanderpool from the BBC to give us the latest on this impeachment inquiry and kind of spell it out for us. What is going on today? What is the latest? So that'll be coming up here in just a little bit. You know, we've been talking a lot about this guy, Alexander Vindman, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know who he was until over the course of the last week when we found out. This is a hero, and I'm not saying this because he's testifying in the impeachment inquiry. I'm saying it because I looked at his history. I looked at his resume. It's unbelievable what this guy has done for this country. He's won the Purple Heart. He's risked his life for this country. He is a war hero. And he continues to serve this country. And, you know, he's doing something that is extremely difficult. He knew that there'd be backlash over this for doing the right thing. And the right thing is testifying and telling the truth. He heard this conversation between Donald Trump and the president of the Ukraine, and now he's speaking up about it. And in the latest, yesterday when he testified, he said the White House has omitted Trump's reference to the Biden tapes in a transcript in the Zelensky call. That is a big deal. And Republicans cannot defend that. So what do? What do some people, luckily not all, some people on the right, what do? They go after this guy, Vindman. They go after him because he was not born in the United States, even though he lived here since the age of 3. They go after him because he speaks Ukrainian language. They go after him for these types of reasons and making a horrible, gross assumption that he doesn't put the U.S. first, even though, again, this guy has risked his life. He has shrapnel in his body. This man, Vindman, has shrapnel in his body right now as we speak because he served the United States and risked his life. Yet idiots on the right, disgusting human beings as far as I'm concerned, disgusting is one word I would describe them, that are going after this man's character, saying that he doesn't have the U.S. best interest. It is disgusting. I want to play you a little bit of audio to prove what I am saying. This is MSNBC's Nicolle Wallace responding to Republicans like Sean Duffy, who have implied that Alexander Vindman is a spy for the Ukraine. Have a listen to this.
And has a master's degree from Harvard. He's worked in several embassies, and he joined the National Security Council last year after passing an extensive background check, unlike some other West Wing advisors we know. His biography and his life of service make the attacks against him remarkable at a time when attacks on once sacred institutions and their leaders have stopped being noteworthy or newsworthy. Trump went from not knowing him to calling him a never-Trumper in the course of an hour and a half this morning. But that's nothing compared to the smear campaign happening on cable news.
We also know he was born in the Soviet Union, immigrated with his family, young. He tends to feel simpatico with the Ukraine.
It seems very clear that he is incredibly concerned about Ukrainian defense. I don't know that he's concerned about American policy, but his main mission was to make sure that the Ukraine got those weapons. I understand that. We all have an affinity to our homeland where we came from. Like me, I'm sure that Vindman has the same affinity.
Here we have a U.S. national security official who is advising Ukraine while working inside the White House, apparently against the president's interest, and usually they spoke in English. Isn't that kind of an interesting angle on this story?
I find that astounding, and some people might call that espionage.
Except those people aren't chicken like the three of you, and they know that he passed a background check that the president's daughter and son-in-law didn't.
Good for you, MSNBC's Nicolle Wallace. Good for you for standing up for these idiots like Duffy and Laura Ingraham.
Is Chris her dad?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what that means.
Chris Wallace?
Is Chris Wallace her dad?
Yes.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
No. Laura Ingraham. Usually they spoke in English. Usually, isn't that an interesting angle? The racist scarecrow on her Fox News show. Usually. And then this idiot that's on her show. That some people would consider that espionage. Well, yeah. Usually, when this guy, Alexander Vindman, has more bravery in his pinky than Laura Ingraham has probably in her whole family, in her ancestry. Usually they spoke in English. Isn't that an interesting angle? God, I can't stand that witch's voice. She's such an awful person. Usually, isn't that espionage?
Whose voice do you dislike more, Fran Drescher or Laura Ingraham?
Well, I have no reason to believe Fran Drescher is a racist pig witch, so I would say Laura Ingraham. Okay, but let's be serious here for a second, okay? You have Laura Ingraham going on a national show, her Fox News show. She has a lot of listeners, okay, a lot of viewers. Usually they speak in English. Don't you find that to be an interesting angle? So to her, an interesting Laura Ingraham angle is the fact that sometimes Alexander Vindman, and it's part of his job, speaks in another language, and she's trying to discredit him for that. Don't you find that disgusting?
Honestly, I think it's beyond disgusting considering that Melania Trump speaks 6 languages. And knowing more languages, if I can speak, if I'm tri or quadrilingual, I'm actually significantly more intelligent than somebody else. I mean, if you can speak multiple languages and transition from them seamlessly, it means you're a pretty smart human being. So
exactly. Why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing. It just pushes it. It's a statement that attempts to push the narrative, but actually does nothing but make her look stupid.
Usually, I'm Laura Ingraham. Shut up and dribble. Because usually I don't like black people to talk about their opinions on this show, usually, unless they agree with me. If they don't, they can shut up and dribble.
You should actually be Laura Ingraham for Halloween. How do you feel about that?
Usually.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Usually I go after rappers 2 weeks after they die. Usually that's what I do. Don't you find that an interesting angle? And then Sean Duffy. This moron, I don't know why CNN pays him to come on because he makes himself look like an ass every single time he goes on. He's, quote, I don't think, and he's talking about Alexander Vindman, I don't think he's necessarily concerned about American policy. How can you make that assumption when this guy won the Purple Heart and he risked his life for your freedom, you dummy? These people are a disgrace. Number to call, 257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-257-5396.
I mean, what are the requirements to win the Purple Heart, Brian? Don't you have to get shot? Don't you have to take a bullet wound? So you're telling me that some other country paid him to take a bullet wound for another country?
It's so ridiculous.
I mean, that's the argument here?
It's so absurd.
Come on.
It's so absurd.
That is beyond insane.
Republican or Democrat.
Yeah, this guy got paid $3 million in a Cayman Islands account by Ukraine to take a bullet for the United States military.
Yeah.
He signed a contract when he was 12 years old, like Matt Damon in The Departed did with Jack Nicholson, and that's what happened. That's basically the argument here. And again, I am a conservative speaking this right now. That just doesn't make any sense.
JD, he's got shrapnel in his body.
I mean, come on.
Shrapnel in his body. The number to call, 257-5396. Let's go to Andre. Andre, what's up?
What's up, Andre?
Good morning, JD. Good morning. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
I want to go ahead and have a conversation with you, really, an honest conversation. You know, I don't like talking to hysterical people, but let me ask you a question. As a man myself who served 20 years in the United States military for 20 years, served in Desert Storm.
Thank you for your service,
Andre.
Andre.
There for about a year or so. Why is the liberal media so hysterical now that they're attacking this gentleman? Which, he's a hero. I'll give you that. But he's no.
I mean, how can you not?
Right. But he's
give
no
us
different
that
from Tulsi Gabbard, and he's no different from General Flynn.
Not true.
And where was the liberal media outrage when Hillary Clinton called Tulsi Gabbard a Russian spy and attacked her? I didn't see the same outrage. I didn't see the same outrage when the liberal media went after General Flynn.
That's actually a pretty valid point, Andre.
Yeah,
probably the best point made on the show.
Whataboutism? What a shocker! What a shocker!
It's proving hypocrisy and a double standard.
Do you want to talk about Bill Clinton now? Do you want to talk about the dossier, Andre? Is that what you want to talk about?
No, I don't know.
Okay, well, what you're doing is...
Once again, I wasn't even talking to you.
I don't care. I don't care. You don't control the show. I don't care. You don't control the show. Right. You're doing whataboutism. Let's talk about this man right here.
You look like a fool and a coward.
Okay, well, you're the one that's bringing up Hillary Clinton, not me. Let's talk about Alexander Vindman.
No, I made a comparison.
Let's talk about Alexander Vindman.
Now you want to argue with me.
Do you know what my opinion is on Hillary Clinton? Do you know what my opinion is on that issue?
He's actually making a pretty good point. He's saying, why is there this giant outrage about Vindman, but there wasn't the same or a similar outrage about what Clinton said about Tulsi Gabbard?
And what did Clinton say about Tulsi Gabbard? You want to have that conversation?
She basically claimed that she was a Russian asset.
Right.
Do you have any? Okay, so obviously you don't know the intricacies when it comes to Gabbard and the Russians. Obviously you don't have the evidence, but go ahead, Andre.
Do you have the evidence? I'm going to give you time now. Do you have the evidence?
Yes, I can tell you right now that there are financials and there is financial documentation to show that she has financial ties to Russia.
Have they brought them out yet?
Have they brought them out yet? There is no evidence that she broke the law. However, there is evidence that she has financial ties to Russia. In fact, she has admitted that on camera. So for Hillary Clinton, that is, excuse me, I'm finishing now.
Yeah.
Okay? It doesn't mean that I support what Hillary Clinton said, because Gabbard, in my opinion, she served this country honorably. And by the way, I say that all the time with people, whether I agree or disagree with their policy, including you, by the way. I say, you are all heroes for your service. I appreciate what you've done for this country, and we should be consistent on that. So on that aspect, I agree with you.
Brian, this is the problem that I have with you, man, because we're all men here. You see what I mean? And I call in and I try to give you respect, but you try to treat people like they're buffoons.
No, you don't. You called up the show and you said you didn't want to talk to me because I was hysterical.
No, you call people buffoons.
No. Hold on a second, Andre.
You did say that, Andre. That's very true.
Andre, you started this conversation. Okay. Hold on. Let me finish now. You started this conversation by saying you didn't want to talk to me because I was hysterical. I'm having a conversation with, excuse me, there's a difference between being hysterical and being passionate. And if somebody calls into the show and says something ignorant or racist or stupid, the way I am is I'm going to call them out for it. Now, if you don't like my style, that's tough doo-doo for you. But that is my personality, and that is what I do here on the show.
Hey, I could handle your style. If you want to have a conversation, I could handle it.
We are having a conversation. You're wasting time now.
When you mute me and you diminish my voice because you don't like what I'm saying.
No, it's never because I don't like. It's never because I don't like what you say. It's because you're not making any sense. Now let's talk about Alexander Vindman, and let me ask you a question. What do you think about people like Duffy? What do you think about people like Laura Ingraham that have gone after this war hero? What do you say? Forget about the Clintons for a second. What do you think about these people on the right?
But let me tell you, this is what I will tell you, Brian, as somebody who served 20 years. Now, I wouldn't do it. Personally, I would not do it if I don't have no evidence of what they're saying. But what I'm trying to tell you is, just because a guy like me or a guy like him served honorably in the military, it doesn't make him exempt from criticism.
I didn't say that.
If he has some kind of bias,
I didn't say that.
I mean, he's a human being. He may have a bias.
Okay.
Towards the president.
So where is the evidence to support that?
Well, that's another thing. Yesterday, in the hearing, according to the media reports, the Republicans were trying to get in the hearing and ask them questions, and what's his name? Schiff shut it down. They can ask him questions.
Okay, that's not factually accurate. Number one,
okay,
the Republican. Okay, no. See, hear what I'm saying now. I know exactly what you're talking about. The reason. I'm trying to answer this question. Okay. The reason why Schiff shut it down, see, you're factually wrong, was because they were trying to release the name of the whistleblower. And then the Democrats and the Republicans were getting into it, verbal fisticuffs. And the reason why Schiff shut it down had nothing to do with the fact that Republicans wanted to ask him questions, and had everything to do with the fact that Republicans wanted to release the name of the whistleblower. You're wrong, Andre.
Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to say is this.
So you don't want to comment on that. You just said something that's not factual.
And it could actually be argued that Gabbard, she actually does have ties to Assad, and she has refused to call Assad what Assad really is. It could be argued that the evidence against her is much more damning than it is against this Vindman character. I believe that right now it looks, and yeah, I understand that, he's not adept to, or immune to criticism, et cetera, or there may be something there, but you can't just create something out of nowhere to push your narrative and throw it on this guy, and that's what's going on here. He won the Purple Heart. He served the country. He did it honorably. So why would you assume that he's a Ukrainian asset or a Ukrainian spy?
257
doesn't make any sense.
257-5396 is the number to call again. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Vaughn. Vaughn, you're next on the Vegas Take. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Vaughn?
Hey, how you guys doing this morning?
Good.
I have a couple questions. First, thanks for accepting the call. But my question to you is, in the positions that he held, with the veteran that he is, me being a vet myself, we have to take oaths, and we have to do things that commit us to silence on things that we experience and things that we know. My question to you is, if this guy is so honorable, why is he going back on his oath?
How is he going back on his oath? Please explain.
If he took an oath to be in the room when the conversation was being held and all these other things, I'm quite sure there was some type of Privacy Act, some type of oath that he had to take.
Okay, here's where you're being. Okay, here's where you're.
Am I wrong?
I think you are, Vaughn, respectfully, and here's
So
why.
you're telling me so listen.
Okay, I'm going to tell you why.
Let me finish. I apologize. Him being a military member, he has to take oaths in every scenario that he is in. We have to take Privacy Act.
And you know what part of that oath was? You know what? And you know what?
Clearances.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, Vaughn, but here's what you're missing. In part of the oath that he takes, if he sees wrongdoing, possibly law-breaking offenses, that he is allowed to take that information and file a complaint about it and raise questions.
Now let me finish. Let me finish. When we are subordinates in situations, we are not always going to be privy to understand what the administration is doing. We may not have all the pieces. We may not be able to know what the right hand and left hand are doing. And the reason it works that way is because
I don't understand
the whole system and the whole program may not be visible to you at that time.
Vaughn, if I may, Vaughn, stay on the line here. This is what I'm trying to. I'm very confused here with what you're trying to say. This was a conversation between the President of the United States and the President of Ukraine. He was He was listening to that conversation.
Okay.
In the transcript that we have, and by the way, Vindman is saying that not everything was put in that transcript that might have been damning to the president. He's testified under oath. In that conversation, Vindman had concerns. And he wasn't the only one, by the way. There are several others that had concerns with this conversation as well. Part of your oath is to do what is best for the United States of America and to be honest. And if Vindman felt, and clearly he did feel, in this conversation that the president was doing wrongdoing and concerning behavior, then he has an oath and he has to report that if he has concerns about it. If anything, it shows that Vindman has a backbone and did what he should have done and continues to do that by testifying in front of Congress, even though some buffoons on the right are going after him and going after his patriotism. So I would say he's doing the opposite of what you're saying.
So that means that every military veteran that has ever served has the right, if they disagree with the person that's in command or the person that's in charge of it.
Not every person,
but
you're wrong. Not every person works for the President of the United States. Not every single person is privy to these conversations.
Has an opinion about what they're being told to do. And when we volunteer or when we assign ourselves or we accept the responsibility of the position, we are going to have things that we disagree with.
This isn't about disagreeing. Okay, Vaughn, with all due respect, and by the way, I appreciate your service and your phone call. This isn't about a disagreement on a conversation. By the way, not everybody is privy to these types of conversations. Not everybody works under the Trump administration. We are specifically talking, I'm not talking about some guy like you who served honorably and just disagrees with the president. Oh boy, I better file a complaint. No, because your complaint won't go anywhere. We're talking about somebody who works in the Trump cabinet, who is listening to these these phone calls. And in these phone calls, if he or she thinks that the president is either breaking the law or doing something that is inappropriate, it is their duty and it is their oath to report that. That is exactly what Vindman did and others.
You know, the craziest part about this is that Trump doesn't even need any dirt on Joe or Hunter Biden. I think it's a landslide regardless. It makes no sense. I don't know what he was trying to get out of this.
I don't necessarily disagree with that.
A little bit. I mean, why would you be afraid of Joe Biden? He's just he's about the same age as you. He's less well known. He's less charismatic. He doesn't have as big of a brand. Why are you trying to look into him? Honestly, I'm very surprised that he would subject himself to this.
JD,
because he didn't need to do this.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think it's because he's very ignorant. I think he makes a lot of dumb decisions. I don't even think he realized how many people are listening to this call.
I think he likes to make sure that he's going to win.
So break the law.
I think he's used to making sure that he's going to win. He doesn't like having actual competition.
Listen, I agree with you. He certainly shouldn't have done it. He didn't have to do it.
It wasn't necessary.
All right, well, I agree. I agree. It wasn't necessary. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll see what Amy Vanderpool from the BBC thinks about this. She'll be joining us next. You're listening to The Vegas Tape.